I could be way off base here, but I don't think that the job market is as bad as everybody says it is. You know how you always hear how great the economy is on the news? They say, the GDP is great, the Dow, but your lived experience doesn't support that. I think it's the same with the job market. All I hear is how bad the job market is, but I don't know anybody that can't find a job. Outside of software engineer, coder type people who are being displaced by AI, do you know anybody that can't find a job? Now, all I really have to go off of is anecdotal experience, okay? I'm just talking here. But I think I do have a pretty wide sample size, knowing people in different industries. I entered the property management industry a year and a half ago with no experience without too much trouble. And then I got a new job a month ago with a different company. After one interview, I got the job and I doubled my salary. In my family, I have a seasoned nurse, a brand new pharmacist, a customer service rep, a graphic designer, a public works, blue collar guy. My friend got into the electrical field, another's in logistics, one's a debt collector. All of them found new jobs in the last couple years, and I haven't heard any of them talk about how hard it was to find a job. The only people that I see struggling to get a job are people on Reddit, and I'm willing to bet that sample size is skewed towards people in the tech field. But, even though I don't have any experience of it being a bad job market, I still find myself saying to people, yeah, the job market's bad right now. Just because I hear that online. It's another doomer mantra that you have to train yourself to ignore. Now, I do believe that there's tons of job applications out there for every job posting. But if there's 100 applications for the job that you applied for, that doesn't mean that your chances of getting that job are 1 in 100. How many of those applications are complete garbage? After you get rid of those, how many people don't answer the phone when the recruiter calls them? And after that, how many people sound like crap on the phone screening? And then after that, how many people don't show up for the interview? If you just answer the phone, you sound decent in conversation, you show up to the interview, you already beat 70% of the applications. If you're white, that's another 10%. From there, if you're decent in an interview, you come across as competent, you're ahead of the game. I just had to hire for a position at my company. This was my first time on the hiring side of the interview. We post a job on Indeed. Sure enough, we get dozens of applications. I'm going through the apps. The resumes are absolutely hilarious. It was for a maintenance technician job for our apartment buildings. We were offering $32 an hour, and so many of the resumes had jobs listed from the 1990s when they were a bartender, or the job descriptions would have one sentence describing the job duties. A lot of the applications were total BS. One guy was a general laborer for a construction company for his previous job. And that's the same job title I had when I was 15, cleaning up job sites and moving tools around. He included minimal detail in the job description. And then the next job that he has as his current employer was a maintenance technician supervisor. It had thorough job duties listed and one line that said increased budget efficiency by reducing material spending by XX%. He forgot to fill in the blanks after he generated the description with AI. There was a lot of that kind of thing. And I realize that this is a blue-collar job, so the average resume is probably a little worse than the other industries that you might be in, but I bet that all the people who applied with resumes like that and didn't get a call back are complaining right now to their friends about how hard it is to find a job in today's market. They're completely unaware that their resume makes them look like a total idiot. Then we get to the people who had good resumes, and we got them in for interviews. First guy had one of the best resumes. He was late by 30 minutes. He totally forgot about the appointment, and then when he got there, he couldn't find the front door. I called one guy and I asked, what are you looking for in a new company? And when I came to this company, I was bored as hell at my previous job, so I was looking for more responsibility, more challenge. I wanted a company which would help me to grow my skill set, maybe send me to conferences. I wanted to learn more about budgeting for the apartment buildings. I wanted to learn to use AppFolio, the property management software, at a higher level. I asked this guy what he's looking for in a new company, and he said, just somewhere I can fit in. He hasn't put any thought into what he wants from the next step in his career. Another guy with a good resume came in, and he had lots of experience as an apartment maintenance tech. But he shows up and he's just petrified. He just couldn't relax, and he was just telling me whatever he thought that I wanted to hear. I asked him, can you give me an example of a time when you went in and did work in somebody's unit and then the tenant was unhappy with the results, and how did you resolve that? His answer was, nobody has ever been unhappy. I was just like, I asked him. I looked at his resume and I go, you've been working in apartment buildings for 14 years and a resident has never complained? And he said, oh, they've complained, just never about me. Completely ridiculous. Like, get out of my office. There's always going to be disputes from residents. Sometimes you got to go back a second time, take another look, make sure it gets done to their liking. Sometimes you're just dealing with a crazy person. One time a lady was pissed because her heat didn't work, but I would go there and I would feel it. I'd put my hand up to the heating unit and there'd be heat coming out. It was uncomfortably hot in her apartment, but she kept calling the emergency line talking about how there's no heat. That's just part of the business. So when he said that no one's ever complained or ever been unhappy, I just couldn't take him seriously. Another guy comes in. He had a decent resume. He did a lot of work in commercial buildings, so not a perfect match because we're residential, but potentially a good pick. He was a nice guy, but he talked so quiet you could barely understand him. I don't want to be talking to a little mouse every day. Tenants are not going to like interacting with this guy, so we had to pass. We go through a whole day of interviews until finally this guy shows up at the very end of the day. He had zero experience as a maintenance tech. He was always a construction guy for like 26 years. But the way that his resume was put together showed that he had critical thinking skills. That's something none of the other people had. On the initial phone call, he was the only guy who was enthusiastic. He asked questions about the job. I felt like he was the best one on that phone screening. So then he comes into the interview, and it was amazing. He's conversational, energetic, proud of his work, but he's humble about starting in a new industry, which he rightfully could see as beneath his skill level because he was doing amazing projects before, and we're just working on old apartment buildings. We actually thought he was BSing because he was so excited about the job, but he's been working here for a couple weeks and he's fantastic. He has no experience in this industry, but he's been such a great addition to the team. He brings everybody's energy up. He's great to talk to. He just makes things a little bit more fun. And, his carpentry experience was applicable. I mean, he does a good job, but he's still training just like any other person we would have brought on. And today I was talking to the director about him, and she said that if he asked for a $5 raise right now, she would give it to him with no questions asked. You'd be surprised at how many people out there are just incompetent. A lot of people are just missing something in their head. Some people are just missing that spark, if you know what I mean. So if you're in for an interview, they already know that you can probably do the job. They have 5 people coming in that day who can do the job. What they're looking for is, are you generally a competent person? Do you have critical thinking skills? Is this somebody that we can stand to work with and talk to? Are you pleasant to be around? People get upset at companies for using AI to sift through resumes, but there's so much complete and utter garbage that gets sent out to them that it would be a waste of time to not use the tools that they have available to sift through that. I guess my point is that I just don't believe the job market's that bad, except for maybe a couple industries that really are being disrupted by AI. There's money to be made out there, and if anyone listens to this video and thinks I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I want to know, what industry are you in, and what has made it so hard for you to find a job if you really are struggling that much. But for those of you that haven't experienced this horrible job market for yourself and you think that things are bad out there just because that's what you've heard, second guess that. Ask yourself, is this really matching my lived experience? And that's what you should judge your thoughts about the world on. Don't let these rain clouds of ideas, these doomer ideas, bring you down because you think that things are so bad out there if you haven't actually experienced that yourself. That's it. Thanks for listening.